A black girl offers J.D. Vance her sandwich, but she was unprepared for the aftermath of her kind gesture. Dora was the kind of child who noticed things others often overlooked. While other kids might giggle and play without a care, Dora often paused to observe the world around her, paying attention to the small things, like a stray cat's twitching tail, the cracks in the sidewalk, or the tired look in a stranger's eyes. She had an ability to sense when someone or something needed kindness. At just 6 years old, she had a heart far bigger than her small frame. Dora's family lived in a modest apartment on the outskirts of town. Life was simple but happy. Dora's mother worked 2 jobs, mornings at the deli and evenings cleaning offices, to keep a roof over their heads. Life wasn't always easy for them, but Sarah had taught Dora the value of generosity, even when they didn't have much to give. It was a lesson Dora took to heart. But sharing her sandwich with J.D. Vance that fateful afternoon wasn't planned. Meanwhile, on the other side of the country, J.D. Vance was quietly losing himself to the world. He was a best-selling author and politician, known for his transformative memoir Hillbilly Elegy and his recent political career. But behind the scenes, his life was in turmoil. For months, Vance had been struggling with the pressures of public life. His political career was not unfolding as smoothly as expected, and personal challenges weighed heavily on him. The media had turned his life into a spectacle, making him a constant target of scrutiny. Even in his high-profile world, surrounded by influence and success, he felt utterly alone. Fame and power, he had come to realize, often came at the cost of genuine connection. But when a close friend suggested he take some time away, Vance hesitated. He hated the idea of running away. He wasn't sure leaving would help him, but after yet another relentless week of flashing cameras and strangers dissecting his every move, he accepted the suggestion. Trying it out, Vance packed a few essentials, left strict instructions for his team not to follow him, and drove until he found a small town where he could be anonymous. The town had a simple charm, no political debates, no flashing lights, just cobblestone streets and a park surrounded by golden trees. He rented a small, unassuming cabin on the outskirts of a quiet town, far removed from the chaos of public life. The days passed slowly, and in a town where everyone seemed to know each other, Vance kept to himself. He hid beneath baseball caps and sunglasses, blending into the scenery. His daily routine became monotonous. He'd wake up, make coffee, and take a walk to the park. There, he'd sit on the same bench, watching the world pass by without really engaging with it. He avoided eye contact, pulling his cap lower whenever someone walked past. He wasn't just hiding from the world, he was hiding from himself, hoping to find solace in the stillness. But isolation brought its own challenges. Each quiet day gave way to restless nights filled with overthinking. His mind replayed mistakes, regrets, and overwhelming questions. Peace didn't come easily. His thoughts were heavy, his heart even heavier. And on one such afternoon, Vance found himself on a weathered bench in the park. The crisp autumn wind rustled the golden leaves overhead. He hadn't eaten all day, too caught up in his own brooding thoughts to care. His thermos of coffee sat empty beside him as he hunched over, staring at the ground. And that was the state Dora found him in, a man on the edge of despair, his heart as weathered as the bench beneath him, completely unaware of what would happen next. For Dora, that day had started like any other. As the crisp autumn wind swept through the streets, she had gone to school, laughed with her friends, and eagerly awaited her mom's after-work ritual of grabbing coffee from the deli. Dora had stopped by the corner deli after school to see her mother, Sarah, order a cup of coffee while Dora, excited as ever, ordered her favorite snack, a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. While her mother chatted with the cashier, handing over her shift, Dora's attention drifted to the park. Across the street. "Mom, can we sit in the park for a while?" Dora asked under her breath, pausing in the cool air. Sarah hesitated, glancing at her watch. She had a cleaning shift in less than an hour, but the way Dora looked up at her with those big brown eyes made her sigh and smile. Dora skipped ahead, her pigtails bouncing, but she stopped abruptly when she spotted a man sitting alone on a splintered bench beneath a canopy of fiery orange leaves. He wasn't like the others strolling through the park or feeding the birds. He sat still, his face hidden beneath a cap and oversized sunglasses. His hunched posture and the way he clutched his coat tightly against the cold made her pause. There was something about him that tugged at her little heart. He looked lonely, almost invisible, like he didn't want to be noticed. But Dora noticed. He looked so sad, his shoulders were hunched, his face obscured by a cap and sunglasses. A scarf was wrapped around his neck, but his thin coat seemed inadequate against the biting wind. His hands folded in his lap trembled slightly. Dora whispered to her mom, tugging on her sleeve. That man looks sad. I think he needs a friend. Sarah followed her daughter's gaze. She saw the man, noticed the weariness in the way he sat. She hesitated. It wasn't unusual to see people down on their luck in the city, and she didn't want to scare Dora or put her in an uncomfortable situation. Maybe he's just resting, she said gently. But Dora couldn't shake the feeling that he needed something. Can I give him my sandwich? She asked, her eyes shining with determination. Sarah looked at her daughter, then back at the man. She hesitated for a moment. Money was tight, and the sandwich was one of Dora's favorite treats, but she saw the determination in Dora's face and knew there was no stopping her. Go ahead, sweetheart. He sure looks like he needs someone to talk to. But be polite. With that encouragement, Dora didn't wait another second. She skipped across the street, sandwich in hand, her pigtails bouncing with each step. She had no idea who the man was, no idea that she was walking into the orbit of someone who had been seen by millions but felt invisible. Hi, her small voice cut through the rustle of leaves. The man lifted his head slowly. Under the shadow of his cap and glasses, Dora could make out the faint scruff of a beard and tired eyes that seemed to hide a sadness she couldn't quite understand. Hello, he said, his voice soft and surprisingly familiar. You look hungry, Dora said matter-of-factly, holding out her sandwich. You can have mine. When she offered her sandwich, Vance looked at her like she had just handed him the world. He blinked, taken aback. For a moment, he didn't move, as though he wasn't sure if she was real. For J.D. Vance, that small act of kindness was a crack in the walls he had built around himself. He didn't know this little girl. He didn't understand why she had noticed him. But her simple gesture reminded him of something he had almost forgotten, humanity. Then, a small, genuine smile tugged at the corners of his lips. Thank you, he murmured, accepting the sandwich with both hands. You're welcome, Dora said cheerfully before skipping back to her mother, leaving the man to sit there, sandwich in hand, his heart unexpectedly feeling lighter. But little did Dora know, the man she had just helped was not a homeless stranger but J.D. Vance, one of the most well-known figures in politics and literature. He had been going through a rough patch, retreating to this quiet town to find some semblance of peace away from the relentless scrutiny of public life. What Dora couldn't possibly imagine was that her small act of kindness had touched him in a way that would ripple far beyond that park bench. 3 days after their encounter in the park, Sarah was flipping through a magazine at the kitchen table while Dora colored quietly. As Sarah turned a page, her heart nearly stopped. There, staring back at her, was the man from the park. He wore the same wide-brimmed cap, but this time, his name was printed in bold beneath the photograph J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance, political icon spotted taking time off in small town. Sarah's eyes darted across the page. The article described J.D. Vance's retreat from public life, seeking solace in small towns to escape the pressures of fame and politics. Dora, Sarah called softly, her voice steady despite her racing thoughts. Dora looked up curiously. Sarah pointed at the page. That's him. The man from the park. Dora peered closer and gasped. The sandwich man. Sarah nodded, flipping to another page showing photos of his best-selling book and political campaigns. He's a big name, sweetheart. People all over the country know him. Dora studied the pictures, her brow furrowing in thought. But he didn't seem like a big politician. He just seemed sad. Sarah smiled faintly, touched by her daughter's simple perspective. Even people who seem to have everything can feel sad sometimes. What you did for him meant more than you know. On the other side of town, J.D. Vance was still thinking about the little girl who had offered him a sandwich. It wasn't just the food, it was what it represented. She had no idea who he was, yet she saw him. She cared. Maybe it's time to stop hiding, he murmured to himself. He spent the day trying to figure out how to give back to the little girl. Money wasn't the issue, he could easily write a check and move on, but that didn't feel right. He wanted to make sure the girl and her family knew what they had done for him. After much thought, Vance finally came to a resolution. He asked around town, visiting the local sandwich shop, trying to find out where Dora and Sarah lived. And 7 days later, J.D. Vance found himself standing at Dora's door. His heart pounded as he knocked, unsure how he would be received. Who could that be? Dora's mother wondered aloud, wiping her hands on a dish towel. Sarah quickly opened the door, only to find the same man from the park standing there. J.D. Vance. Holding a large basket filled with chocolates and Flo, good evening, Vance said with a warm smile, his signature charm radiating. I hope I'm not intruding. I'm here to see Dora. Dora peeked out from behind her mother, her eyes lighting up with recognition. "It's you. You're JD, Vance." Vance chuckled, kneeling to meet her at eye level. "So, you figured it out, huh?" "Yes. Because you're in books and on TV," Dora exclaimed. "I saw your pictures in a magazine." Vance smiled, but Dora's curiosity bubbled over. "Why were you so sad?" He hesitated, glancing at Sarah before answering. "Sometimes life feels heavy, even when everything looks perfect from the outside," he admitted. Before Dora could ask any more questions, he handed her a gift basket. "This is for you." Dora's face lit up as she inspected the goodies inside. "For me?" she asked, wide-eyed. "All for you," Vance nodded. "You gave me something when I needed it most, a reminder that kindness still exists in the world. And I wanted to properly thank you." Dora beamed as she accepted the gift. Meanwhile, Sarah, still stunned, invited Vance inside for tea. Over cups of chamomile, Vance spent the evening with Dora and her mother, sharing stories, not just about his political career, but about how that moment on the bench had shifted his perspective. He explained how he had been battling personal struggles, feeling disheartened by the world, almost on the verge of giving up. But Dora's unselfish gesture had reminded him that even in the darkest times, there is light. Before leaving, Vance handed Dora a signed book and gave an envelope to Sarah. "This is just a little something to help your family out," he said modestly. When Sarah opened the envelope after he left, she found a check, enough money to pay off their mortgage and secure Dora's future education. When Vance left that night, he left more than just a gift basket and a generous check. He left a piece of himself, a reminder that even the smallest acts of kindness can pull someone back from the brink. And as he drove away, his heart felt lighter, his soul restored, carrying with him the memory of a black girl who had given him a sandwich. Though J.D. Vance returned to his whirlwind political life, he never forgot the little girl with the jelly sandwich, the one who reminded him of the goodness in the world. Sometimes, the simplest gestures can change lives in ways we never expect. Though Vance didn't return to their town, he carried their story with him, sharing it in interviews and inspiring others to practice small acts of kindness. Months passed after the unexpected encounter in the park, but life continued for Dora and Sarah much the same, though with a newfound sense of hope and stability. Vance's gift had eased their burdens, allowing Sarah to quit one of her jobs and spend more time with Dora. They had moved into a slightly larger apartment with the help of his generosity, but they remained the same kind-hearted people they had always been. And years later, Sarah would look back on that day in the park as the moment everything began to change, not just for their family, but for everyone. For Dora, that single act of giving would become a foundation for her life. The story wasn't about helping a celebrity or a politician, it was about helping someone in need. And as she grew older, she carried that same generous spirit with her, offering kindness wherever she could, confident that even the smallest gestures could have the greatest impact. What do you think about the black girl's gesture? Do you believe kindness can have such a great impact? Let us know in the comments section. Don't forget to like, follow, share, and subscribe for more inspiring stories. Also, click on the next video, you're going to love it.